So it's day 301. The big story in Ukraine right now is that Zelensky is on his way to Washington, D.C. It's his first trip out of the country since he began 301 days ago, since the war, when he said, "I'm here. I have not fled." He was offered a ride. And he did not take it, but he's taking it for a significant reason. And I'll get into that today. It's not to flee, it's actually to support. And I talked about this to some degree, and I'll post this below with the political divide in the United States. And what I'm about to say draws a lot on that. I'll post it at the end. I'll put it in the notes below so that you can find that. But I want to start right here. I want to start with this. Putin admits to a complicated situation we talked about yesterday in Ukraine. And it's a rare admission. It's not something that you normally see coming out of Putin's mouth. He normally is only talking about positive and progress and that kind of thing. And so for him to say that is a really significant thing. But for Zelensky, it's also this is go time. Like, you've got to get this locked down for next year. So here we go. Zelensky may visit the White House on Wednesday. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are scheduled to meet at the White House on Wednesday in what will be a surprise visit. Well, the whole world knows about it. That will coincide with the administration's intention to send the country new defensive aid package that will include Patriot missile systems. Now, they're going to announce that in a joint session of Congress, but that's not all that they're going to announce. Here's a little bit more about the story. This is from Fox News. White House confirms Zelensky's travel ahead of massive bill funding Ukrainian military. So a press statement from the Biden administration on Wednesday morning, the visit will underscore the United States' steadfast commitment to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes, including through the provision of economic, humanitarian, and military assistance, the statement said. So what's actually going on is that they're making sure that before Republicans come into power and have a majority in the House, and that would allow them to be able to block things or keep things off the agenda, that they're having this massive bill that will be able to fund Ukraine through the next year. I don't know that they need to, but that's what they're concerned about. But the way that they're doing it is creating potential animosity. So what we have here is that a press statement from Biden's administration on the Biden administration on Wednesday said, blah, blah, blah. So it would be far better to have a joint statement from President Biden and the minority leader in the Senate or the minority leader in the House, so that it's clearly bipartisan, saying this is a joint statement that we're looking forward to this and blah, 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 because that way you have both sides together. Well, what they're running the risk of doing is actually making this a Democrat issue when it's not. It's a national interest issue, and it has the potential to become just one party side issue. And that's why there's some lagging, because some people are looking at this, well, if Biden's doing this, then that must be bad. And that's a terrible way of analyzing things, but some people will look at it that way. Okay, Zelensky's U.S. visit to countering emerging opposition to supporting Ukraine. So he's seeing the poll numbers in the United States on the conservative Republican side start to dwindle, and that's part of why he's coming. So I'm pretty sure his messaging is going to be hitting all the high notes from a Republican point of view as well. Not to isolate the Democrats, but to talk about all the things that conservatives hold dear in the message itself, so that there's as little resistance as possible to a huge like $40 million or something dollar package, a billion with a B package. A few months ago, Volodymyr Zelensky's aides were adamant the president would not go abroad until Russia was defeated. As Russian tanks rolled toward Kyiv, Zelensky refused to flee. He famously declared, "I need ammunition, not a ride." Zelensky is expected to speak there in a special address this evening. Up until recently, support for Ukraine has been largely bipartisan affair, and that was largely true, but it's dwindled on the right again because the left has made it like their issue, which is a mistake. Don't do that. It's a national policy issue. It's something that it's actually a world should be concerned with kind of issue. 10 months later, America First conservatives have increasingly questioned the vast amounts of U.S. aid, military and economic, being delivered to Ukraine. Okay, these are largely the populist wing of the right. They're mostly associated with Trump. They're the populist wing. There's difference between that and like Reagan conservatives that look at it differently. And it's okay generally, but again, they're the ones most likely to be. So Biden's doing that. Well, I don't want to have anything to do with what he's doing. Pelosi's doing this, right? Don't isolate unnecessarily. This is an unforced error. Okay, Tucker Carlson has repeated Kremlin talking points and joked he was rooting for Moscow. Tucker has been such a disappointment. I'm a conservative, right? I can't stand watching Tucker Carlson anymore. Now, if you want to know whether you're on track or off track, if you're Tucker Carlson, look at RT. This is RT. Search results for Tucker Carlson, more than 300 results. That means that they're putting him on there because he's repeating the stuff that they want to have in messaging. So it's just bad. It's all bad. The White House will reinforce this existential good versus evil message by announcing an enormous military aid package worth almost $2 billion tonight. It will include, among other things, the Patriot air defense system. Okay, conservatives should be able to get behind that, but so the more that it becomes the Biden show, the less it makes it palatable for them to be able to do that, even though they should be naturally in this corner. The Biden administration also wants Congress this week to approve additional funding for Ukraine of almost $45 billion. And again, how they do it is going to make a big deal about whether it goes through the way we'd hope. This week is extremely important for Ukraine in order to get through this winter and next year, President of Zelensky said in a video statement on Tuesday. According to him, our soldiers gave me our banner today and asked me to pass it on to those whose decisions are very important for Ukraine and all our soldiers. He's talking about the U.S. And here's the banner that they're talking about, a Ukrainian flag signed by the soldiers that he's going to pass along to Biden or Congress or something along those lines. Zelensky's advisor, Mikhailo Polodek, told Reuters that the visit is extremely significant. It absolutely is extremely significant. In the meeting tomorrow, President Biden will have the opportunity with President Zelensky to have an in-depth strategic discussion on the way ahead on the battlefield and the capabilities and training of the U.S. and our allies continue to provide Ukraine. The trip is something we wanted to do for some time, he's added. However, a senior official said the Biden administration is confident that support will remain bipartisan. I absolutely hope so. I told you earlier, I'm a pretty conservative Republican. Don't leave this channel because of that. What's important is that you support Ukraine, whether you're liberal, conservative, or somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you support Ukraine. People are literally dying there. That's what's important. Now, if you're bipartisan, I've actually been ousted from a Facebook group where I was supporting Ukraine and helping as a moderator because they were ultra liberal and they didn't want to hear anything from a conservative. That's the wrong strategy. That's an unforced error. Let us work together to support Ukraine. Okay, so this isn't about sending a message to a particular political party, that official says. This is about sending a message to Putin and sending a message to the world that America will be there for Ukraine for as long as it takes. And I think that's the right message, and that's what we need to be doing. Zelensky's visit doesn't hurt to get the Omnibus bill over the goal line 100%. And I have mixed emotions of whether we should be doing this in the Omnibus bill, because whatever other gifts that the left wants to put into the omnibus bill for whatever from the Republican conservative point of view is crazy that they shouldn't be putting in there. It makes it harder for them to vote for this if they want to vote for this because of all the other stuff, because it's an omnibus bill. It's everything. So, but maybe that's a good strategy because maybe it has a greater chance of getting through. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, you got to be careful and not unnecessarily split off supporters. Okay, let's keep going. Russia-Ukraine live news. Putin vows to fulfill his military goals. And he says this, and I thought this was really interesting. President Vladimir Putin says Russia can achieve the goals of what he calls a special military operation in Ukraine without damaging the economy by militarizing it. I don't know that that's possible to be done. I have enough credit hours in economics that I've taught some econ courses, and there's the classic butter or guns debate. Like, you can have this or you can have that, but you can't necessarily have both. President Johnson tried to have both in the Great Society in the 60s and 70s, and it didn't really work out very well. So I don't think it's going to work any better because the laws of economics have not changed. It's not going to work out any better for Putin when they go to a military economy footing. It's going to make it much harder on the rest of the economy. Okay, next article. Russia plans to boost military links with Iran, UK Defense Secretary says. He's talking about in return for having supplied more than 300 kamikaze drones, Russia now intends to provide Iran with advanced military components, undermining both Middle East and international security. So one article was talking about last week that might include nuclear technology, and that's a really, really bad thing to be doing. The West is closely monitoring Iran's relationship with Russia at a time when the Kremlin is desperate to make up for shortages in munitions. The defense secretary said that Russia was now, quote, resorting to, this is really interesting, resorting to stripping jetliners for spare parts as it desperately seeks to manufacture fresh missiles. So I did another video where I was talking about sanctions don't work. Not by themselves. They have some effect, and this is part of the effect, but they don't, by themselves, they're pretty much useless. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to have everything else going. But this can actually aid to that, aid the effort when you have it in such a place where they can't get the parts in order to create more missiles. It is estimated by Ukraine that stocks of Iskander missiles are at around a ninth or less of previous levels. The depleted Russian Air Force, and the minister said, was only conducting tens of missions a day as opposed to 300 in March. Well, part of the tens is not just the depletion of the Air Force, but because they actually have air defense that can shoot it down, and the Russians are aware of that. They're not totally stupid, maybe ill-informed or of bad intent or whatever, but they know that they don't want to get their own missile or their own plane shot down. Okay, now it's time for some fun with Russian state media. So here's our first article. Commander of the Chechen Special Forces says Ukrainian soldiers retreat every day. And he goes on and says the Russian forces push them back every day. The Ukrainian security forces have abandoned assault measures completely. Okay, well, I don't know where he's saying that they're retreating every day, because I'm looking at the map, and here is the deep state map. And as I look at it, I rolled it back to December. Now, this is the borderline between the two countries, and I'm not seeing a lot of movement. This is Bakhmut, which is where Zelensky was just a couple of days ago, and I'm just going to click on it. So here's 12-1, 12-2, 12-3, 4, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19. Okay, I didn't see a lot of movement. I mean, I saw some movement, but it's not a lot. I mean, this retreating every day rhetoric sounds a little overblown. Okay, next, conscription age. And I didn't really understand why they were doing this. I have a little theory, but help me with it. Conscription age to be raised, not lowered, raised from 18 to 21. The defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, announced plans to raise conscription age in Russia from 18 to 21. So my first theory is this is to calm the population down, that their children are not going to be sent. And so it's necessary to increase the number of Russian armed forces to 1.5 million troops, including 695 contract soldiers, Shoigu said. Currently, all male citizens age 18 to 27 are subject to conscription in the Russian Federation. They join the army and serve for 1 year. So maybe it's to calm the population. And then my other thought was this. Here's a map of, like, by age. So if you have a lower group here, but you have a higher group here, maybe raising it is going to have some kind of effect. I don't know that has anything. It was just a thought. Maybe it has some effect, maybe it's not. But you can see, like, 15 to 19 is a smaller category than up on the higher end. Maybe they're trying to raise it so they can keep more of the higher end, kind of in a shell game kind of way. I really don't know, but it's really an odd article, and I'm not sure what to make of it. So if you do, let me know. Okay, next, Russia to create new grouping of troops near the Sweden border with Sweden and Finland. New grouping in northwest Russia, given NATO's. Now, part of the reason that they're doing it is they don't know how to do anything without threatening and bullying. Like that's the only language that they really speak. So they understand when it's spoken back to them, but that's pretty much it. So here's Shoigu. Given the NATO's desire to build up military potential near the Russian borders, as well as to expand the North Atlantic Alliance with the help of Finland and Sweden, we need to take a responsive measure to create a relevant grouping of troops in the northwestern Russia. Okay, yeah, deploy them there. I think that's a great idea. Put as many troops as you possibly can over on this border so that they don't go to Ukraine. I think that's a great thing. I mean, go ahead, do it. Okay, next. Russia starts deploying heavy SAMART SARMATs, I think that means Satan missiles, ICBM ICBM missiles. Those are intercontinental ballistic missiles. Successful launches of the new heavy SARMATs missile system during tests made it possible to start work on their deployment, Shogu said. Again, they're saber rattling because they don't know how to say anything, like how to get along without just threatening your opposition. The new missile is capable of attacking targets through both north and south poles. And that was a head scratcher for me because I looked at this and I said, okay, if you're in Russia, let's look at this map. If you're in Russia and you want to attack the US and Canada, going over the North Pole makes a lot of sense. But who are you possibly going to attack by sending it from Russia under the South Pole and then back up again to whoever it is that you're going to attack? Like, that doesn't even make that doesn't make a lick of sense to me. But I mean, I guess they like to brag about how awesome they are and stuff. So okay, you can brag. Okay, Russia will continue to modernize nuclear arsenal. We're not talking about nuclear stuff, but then we talk about nuclear stuff and talk about nuclear stuff, and that's just how that works. We will continue to maintain and improve combat readiness of our nuclear triad. This is the main guarantee for preserving our sovereignty and territorial integrity, strategic parity, and a general balance of power in the world, Putin says. But we're not the ones talking about nuclear stuff. It's the West that's talking about nuclear stuff. Okay, well, that's pretty much all that I have. I would urge you to spend some time, go, Christmas shop and find a mug or a hat or something. Like, do something in order to identify with Ukraine. Just do something. I don't care what it is, but do it. And then if you don't want to do it this way, this particular organization or this particular link will go to a entrepreneur in Ukraine if you buy from him. And I get it. It's pricey, but you're helping him survive. And if you don't want to do that, go to Samaritan's Purse. I have the links for both of those below. Support Ukraine in some way, shape, or form. That's all that I ask you to do. Thank you for being the kind of person that's willing to support Ukraine. I know that you are, because if you're still listening to me right now, you're that kind of person that's that dedicated to hear me drone on and on and on and on and on. So thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.